Welcome back. This is the Citi Sports Roundup on Citi TV. Let me introduce my guests for the afternoon. Emmanuel Nubo and Susu Graham. Guys, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. Nice to have you here. Alrighty, let's start off. And today's show will be very heavy on transfers because all of a sudden, a window that looked dull and inactive has woken up. Players are moving helter-skelter and all kinds of funny stories are attached to some of these transfers. And so let's begin with a very interesting one. Brazilian wide man, Raphinha, remember him? We discussed him a few weeks ago on this. He finally has his dream move. He's gone to Barcelona to go join them for the foreseeable future. He played 38 games last season, scored 11, gave 3 assists. His expected assists, and Susu, I'm right, XA, expected assists for the stat buffs, 6.8. He finished 8th, which means that he was expected to, what's the number, 6.8?
Yeah, so about 7 assists. So
about 7
his
assists.
teammates kind of let him down there.
So about 7 assists on the average, the entire season. He was 9th in terms of crosses, and he was 7th in terms of key passes. So that's a player who, at least at the level of Leeds United, provided what it is he had to provide to a large extent. And when you compare him to the rest of the league, he wasn't really bad. He ranked in the top 10 in terms of some of these matrices. So let me start off with you, since you provided some of these numbers. Your take on this transfer? This transfer had been brewing in a while. It threatened to become a bit of a sideshow, a circus drama, whatever. But it eventually settled down and Barcelona got their man.
Well, I think it's an interesting transfer because he plays the same position as Dembélé. And Dembélé also had a very good season. So it's a very strange one. But Barca have been chasing him for a while. It seems like they really wanted him. So I don't know. Because he held up his transfer to Chelsea. He could have gone to Chelsea. Chelsea were offering Leeds more money and he refused because he preferred to go to Barca. So that's a very interesting one for me. But I'd love to see him in La Liga. I think he's done enough to earn a big move. He's going to be one of Brazil's star players at the World Cup. So, I mean, it's a Brazil star player should not be playing at Leeds United with all due respect, considering their level. So, I would like to see him move, and I'm very excited to see what he brings to La Liga. Because I think that La Liga, there's a bit more space there. There's a bit more time for him to influence the game on the ball. So, it remains to be seen how well it goes. But I'm very excited.
All right, so Raphinha getting his dream move. Emmanuel, your thoughts? This, a few weeks ago, we heard of Barca's interest. Then Leeds show up with more money. The reports were that Leeds and Chelsea Chelsea showed up with more money. Leeds and Chelsea had struck a deal. Arsenal thought they were interested. And all of a sudden, it's Barcelona. They've had their man. They've had their man in terms of getting Raphinha.
I think Arsenal were just watching in from outside because they were just waiting for the whole thing to get messed up and then they can come in and poach their guy. But then, with reference to what Susu said, I think Dembélé is it ambipedal, you call it? He can play on either side. You can't really tell which is his weak foot or his strong foot. Mm-hmm. So for that, it gives Raphinha the room to actually play, let's say, as a right wide player. So then Dembélé can occupy the other side. And you'd expect that with the caliber of players Barcelona have, and with what he was doing at Leeds United in the Spanish league, where the league is a bit more slow, it's a bit more technical, there's a bit more passing and space to exploit, it would actually order well for him. And you'd assume that in a better team. With Leeds, for instance, they didn't have Bamford for majority of the season, and they had their struggles. So you say there was a lack of quality around him to finish some of the chances he was creating. In as much as sometimes when it comes to goal scoring, he's a bit wasteful, but then you would understand the situation he was in. He was their most fit player. He played 38 games, their key player. Everything was on his shoulder, so he had to turn up or everything was going south. So maybe some of these numbers would actually be lower than the XG. But I think it's a good move for him for Barcelona. We know how South Americans already have this affinity towards Barcelona in the Spanish game, so it works well for him. It's also a World Cup year. He's a player in form. It looks like he will settle well into a team where he's going to start. So then, with the attributes he has and with what Xavi is trying to build, hopefully, it looks like it was a very good move for him.
You mentioned Dembélé playing on one end and Raphinha on the other. We'll talk about Dembélé in a second. But so with all of this happening, when you think of Barcelona, do they walk into next season, obviously a far stronger side? But what does it mean for them in the attacking sense? There's Memphis Depay. Technically, he's still a Barca player, even though he's looking for a move elsewhere. There's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Now there's Raphinha, and then there's Ousmane Dembélé.
And there's potentially Lewandowski.
I mean, where does it leave Xavi with options, or now he would now have to start to think a bit more about what he does with all these players.
You know, sometimes too many options is not a good thing, because I think we are reaching that point with Barca. Their squad looks very bloated. It looks like they have too many players. If Lewandowski comes in, that's Aubameyang, Depay, and Lewandowski all vying for the central role. Maybe you move Aubameyang left or something, but it's still a lot of players. And you are paying these players at high wages. And it seems like Barca are just doing exactly what got them in this financial mess again. So it makes you wonder. But we were talking about this earlier, and I was telling Benjamin that, look, when you think about it, remember, Barca is run by people who are elected. When you're elected, you have to do things that may not necessarily be the most sensible, because you are thinking about your next election and winning votes. So how does it look to the voters when you bring Lewandowski in? How does it look to the voters when you bring Raphinha in, someone who's now one of Brazil's key players? You know, so you have to consider these things. So some of these blockbuster moves are not necessarily because the team needs a player here. Because we are hearing
it's a very political.
We are hearing 80 million for Bernardo Silva. So, and considering the economic situation of Barca, 80 million for Bernardo Silva, when you have Frankie de Jong, who, even though they are trying to sell, you have Gavi, you have Pedri. It's a lot of money for a player when you have these young guys coming up. So I don't know. Barca's transfer dealings, it seems very political to me, but it sounds exciting on paper, because Dembélé, Raphinha, and Lewandowski as a front three. That sounds very exciting on paper.
So already it gives them something to fight with ahead of next season. That they are back in the Champions League. So, great team to put together. We're talking about Ousmane Dembélé. Well, he did sign his extension after weeks and weeks of speculation. He's giving Barca another 2 years, and they'll be happy. Dembélé, he played 21 games last season, scored once because the other time was spent with the doctors. That's what he's been doing. Assist 13, which is first. Expected assist, he ranked third, 7.8. 96 crosses, he was 10th, and dribble 63. It tells you where his strongest points are. Pace, the ability to deliver. And I think one of the most important assists he gave in the season was in the Clásico, skinning the Real Madrid fullback and crossing one in for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Emmanuel, is it good investment for Barca? They've given Dembélé another 2 years,
and
despite
40% pay cut.
And a 40% pay cut, despite spending the last 3 or 4 years hanging out with the doctors.
Well, if I mean, you can see the assist count there, 13, and most of them came in the second part of the season where he was fit and playing regularly. But then it still leaves that question mark hanging. How consistent can he be on the pitch and not in the medical room?
Okay.
Because it seems like his spell at Barca since he's moved from Borussia Dortmund has been more with the medicals than on the pitch. And he's a fantastic player. Very terrific. He knows how to take players on. He has a delivery on him. So it's risky. Yes, the pay cut is in there. But then you didn't want to plan around a player who is not on the pitch, and he spends more time with the medic than the training people. And that's the fear. But then we saw the quality he possesses. I mean, since his times from France to Borussia Dortmund, the quality is there to see. But then that has never been in doubt. The issue right now is, can he stay on the pitch? Because if he's on the pitch, it looks like in a good system he will be able to deliver, and that's the fear. But just to add up to what Susu said, it's looking as if Barca are adding players, but the outgoings are less. And then when you find difficulty in selling your players, it really becomes a problem. And for someone like Dembélé, if you have that situation where he is fit and he's not playing, then he grows cold, and then when you bring him in, he's not performing. So it's a lot of things, and I think Barcelona will really have to manage it well. They've made a lot of signings. I think this is their fourth or fifth signing. So many people have, just about 2 or 3 have left. So they will need to structure the team such that the players who matter will have time to play and then express themselves. Then they'll be able to have a say in the La Liga going forward.
So as we think about Dembele's extension, that would I be wrong if I say that Raphinha is the guarantee and you've got Dembélé as the backup? Or I don't know if you get my point. Looking at Dembele's history.
Oh yeah, I mean the 13 assists says it all, because you lead the league but you play only 21 games. How often do you hear someone playing basically half the games and leading the league in a major statistical category like that? It's not done. So it just shows the quality he can have when he plays. Because imagine if he had played the 38 games on that basis, you are looking at someone who get 20 assists easily, and that's a lot. That's a lot of assists. I mean, so he has that quality, but they're staying fit. And I think the goals thing also tells us a bit about his finishing. It's very erratic. Even though he can use both feet, if I remember correctly, when I was looking at the stats, his shots per 90 was like second or third in the league, but he scored 1 goal. So that's something to be wary of. But like I said, he's an excellent player. He can beat his man. If he focuses on doing the things he's good at and leaves some of the other things, maybe he focuses more on his playmaking. This is a very good winger. And again, his fitness will always be an issue, but how much of that is down to him not taking care of himself, and how much is that to his body? So we have to ask that question. Is it the case that he doesn't care, he doesn't take care of himself, or is it the case that he just doesn't have a strong body, which is unfortunate, but it does happen. So the next season will be interesting. But I think having Raphinha there means that even if Dembélé is injured or not performing, you still have someone who can perform. You still have someone who can get those goals and assists. You still have that threat from the right. And Dembélé, like you said, being able to use both feet, he plays on the left, he plays on the right. It doesn't matter because he can cut in, he can cross. And if you look at his stats, there's always this stat that Squawka used to put on about how he has 19 assists with his left, 19 assists with his right, 13 goals with his left, 12 goals with his right, that kind of thing. So it just shows that it doesn't matter where you put him, what side you put him, he will do the damage.
So just finally, as we go away from this, so Raphinha looks more like the player who will get a bit more time, Dembélé will have to be managed. So, for example, if Xabi wants to look at Dembélé and Raphinha as his options down the
even
right,
forgetting Ferran Torres.
I was about to ask who plays on the opposite wing. Would you shift Aubameyang there and play Torres through the middle? Again, because the reports from Spain is that the Barcelona don't really like Ferran Torres that much.
I mean, I questioned that move immediately it was made, especially because the rumors of Raphinha started around January. So it's just the Chelsea thing that kind of made it like, was it going to happen or not? So it was clearly evident that Raphinha was coming in. You already had Dembélé, who was firing on all cylinders. You have Ferran. So where do you put him? And you know, these Spanish teams can be Spanish biased sometimes. So then they ask so many questions. Because they spent a lot of money on him. And at that time,
a striker. That's what they've said.
But we've seen him
through the middle.
We've seen him play.
So he competes with Aubameyang, or Aubameyang plays on the left.
I don't know, but that seems to be the thinking.
Looks like Xabi has a lot of thinking to do around this squad. Quite heavy. Alrighty, let's move it on. Let's talk about another player who could be on his way to the Premier League. According to some reports, that's just a matter of time. Napoli and Senegal defender Kalidou Koulibaly, the 31-year-old there, played 27 games for Napoli last season. So you can put an asterisk there and say, is it a matter of fitness? His pressure success, almost 42%, almost 54 passes per 90, 40 interceptions, 43 tackles. He won 59% of his aerial duels, I'm believing that stat line. Interesting numbers, but... So anyway, initial thoughts on this. Chelsea eyeing Koulibaly. It looks like...
just add, it wasn't mentioned, but his pressure success rate was second in the league. So that means when he presses, he's the second most successful player. So that's very good. He means when he goes for the ball, he gets it. It's very impressive. And we've known about him for a while. This is someone who's a former Serie A defender of the year. He's been the Serie A team of the year.
His medicals are done, I'm told.
Yes, he's been the Serie A team of the year about 4 or 5 times. He'll probably be in the one this year. They do their team of the year in December, strangely enough, so we'll see it in December. He may
December
or may not.
For the next calendar year.
So I guess the season ends in May, and they do the gala like in December. So that's when they give
awards for the previous season.
Yeah, that's where they give some of the awards. It's a strange thing, but that's what it is. So he might end up in the team of the year because Napoli did have the best defense in Serie A this season, and we've known his quality for a while. It seems strange he's only now making the move, and for the amount he's making. So it looks like maybe Napoli are thinking about cutting costs. Because remember, there was a time where Koulibaly was supposed to be a 100 million defender and 80 million defender, and it just never materialized. And now he's about 30, 31. He's finally making the move to England. So I'm a bit worried that he's on the wrong side of his peak. But I feel like with a quality defender like him, who's very strong in the air, he's quick, he's not going to suffer too much because he has a great sense of awareness. But again, it's always a worry when players make a transfer later in their career that they're just not the same as they used to be. But we've seen him at major tournaments for Senegal very recently. We'll see him at the World Cup. I think it's a good signing for Chelsea, especially considering the Rudiger-shaped hole in their defense. He's a leader. He's Napoli captain, I believe, right now. Well, he would be because Insigne just left, but he's also left. So it looks like some issues there. But good signing, in my opinion.
Good partner for Thiago Silva, I believe.
Yeah.
Even though I won't classify him. Chelsea's backline is strange these days.
I think I saw these tweets that said that the combined ages of Thiago Silva and Koulibaly was about 104. But I mean, for a player who doesn't rely on pace so much and is a good reader of the game, age doesn't really have too much to do with them because he's intelligent. So if he knows that he can't beat you for pace, he'll beat you with intelligence. But then, we all know, just as Susu said, 100 million some years ago, because if we do remember, Chelsea actually were looking to buy Koulibaly. They didn't get him, and then they settled for Rudiger. So it looks like it's someone who has been on their books for a while. But if we are going to judge him by how he played in the AFCON, it could be a reason why he played less games in the Serie A too. And he led the team to their first AFCON. He looked very good even at his age. Can he stay fit? It's also another question. But
because you look 27 games,
if you look
out of what possible 38.
Yes, on the grand scheme of things, Chelsea wouldn't want to go and buy, let's say, an up and coming defender and put him right into their team when they are trying to chase titles and they are trying to push the top four. So I mean, it's a good sign. They've gone for an experienced person. The main question here is, will he be able to adapt to the league fast enough? Because you wouldn't want him to take too long to adjust, and then maybe the teams ahead of you will be too far gone, and then you can't catch up. But on surface level, he looks like a good sign. He has a cool head on him. I think he will sink right well into the Premier League and the Chelsea defense.
Interesting. So with Chelsea losing 2 centre backs, they've brought in Koulibaly, and so I agree with you when you say that it looks like he is the direct replacement for Antonio Rudiger, and I'm sure Thomas Tuchel will be happy with that. I don't know how that backline will look like in the new season, because there are talks of Azpilicueta and Alonso and Barca. I think that interest kind of cooled
at this point, we shouldn't take Barca interest seriously. Because the interest, they can be interested, but whether they will be able to find their money is another matter. So I think we should kind of...
I think the more realistic rumor is Ake, who will make perfect sense.
I heard that the Ake deal has fallen through.
Well, to Chelsea.
Yes.
Chelsea couldn't meet that valuation,
exactly,
so it looks like that deal is off.
So
and they couldn't buy Ronaldo too. They said they weren't interested ultimately. I found that quite interesting. Anyway, Chelsea fans, I'm sure you are delighted with the kind of business that is happening. We'll talk about Raheem Sterling after the break. Koulibaly is on his way. He's done his medical and all of that. Chelsea fans, if you are watching, we'd love to hear from you. Are you happy with the signings? Do you think that more players should come in? Who should Chelsea sign ahead of the new season, which begins in a few weeks? You're still watching the Citi Sports Roundup. My name is Nathan Kwasusu. Graham and Iman Onubo are with me. We'll take a very short break. When we come back, we've got more for you. Transfer stuff, kind of interesting. All of that happening. We'll do some athletics at the end of the show as well. The World Athletics Championships taking place in the US. We'll talk a bit about that. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the Citi Sports Roundup on Citi TV. Let's talk some more transfers. And let's stay with Chelsea, because they bagged their first player of the new window as they went shopping. It looks like they went to the supermarket a little later than other teams, but it doesn't matter. They are still buying because there's a lot left in the shop for you to buy. Raheem Sterling, he's joined them from Manchester City, 27 years on a £47.5 million deal. Played 30 games last season. Scored 13, 5 assists. His goals per 90, 0.55. That was about 8 last season. So averagely a goal, almost a goal per game. 49 dribbles, 52 carries if you want. He was 7th in the league, and he joins Chelsea. So going forward, when you get him in a fantasy league, he will no longer be a Man City player. He will be a Chelsea player, maybe a bit more consistently than what he was doing at City, where you prepare your team and put Sterling in only for Pep to bench him and cost 2 points. But it looks like that may not happen under Thomas Tuchel. Iman, I'm sure you find it funny. But thoughts on this? Are you surprised this deal has happened?
Well, from a Chelsea point of view, no. Because the wingers they've brought in have not lived to the billing. There was so much hype around Ziyech. There was a lot of hype around Pulisic. And they've not delivered. Werner, in and out, they haven't delivered. I think Sterling is a more seasoned person, and we've seen his rise, especially since he's moved to Manchester City. He's added goals. He's part of the Premier League Club 100. He's added goals to his game. He's added finishing to his game. He's become a more settled player. He was a bit too jittery. He was a bit too eager to do certain things. But now you can see that with proper coaching and being under the guidance of Pep, he's a more mature player now. He knows when to take his turn. And one thing that has really improved with Sterling under City is his movement and his awareness. He ends up being at the right place at the right time. So in a good system, you'd get goals, you'd get assists. That is where maybe I feel like Chelsea would need to be playing well the team will need to be well oiled and all round to be able to maximize his qualities and for him to be effective in the team. If Tuchel can give him that would be good. But then the other side of it too is that in what role or what position will Tuchel deploy him? Is he going to try to play him through the middle? Is he going to try to play him on the right or on the left? So we need to see how that will look on paper. Maybe in their preseason or so, we would have an idea of how he would like to deploy him. But then his quality is not. You can't question his quality. He barely gets injured. He's always going to be there. He's fit. He knows how to score. He knows how to find the pool. He knows how to bring his teammates into play. He's quick and everything. He has all the materials to be a success at Chelsea. We just need to see how Tuchel is going to deploy him and how his other teammates around him are also going to respond to him to bring the best out of him.
Okay. So your thoughts? I mean, we are looking at some of the goals he scored at Man City. For a player who gave them 131 goals, why do you think they let him leave at this point of his career?
I believe it's him rather wanted to leave, because if you've been listening to the rumblings since about early last season, he has been angling for a move because he wants to see himself as a priority. He wants to see himself as an undisputed starter. And it seems only Kevin De Bruyne and maybe Ruben Diaz and right now Rodri have that privilege in Man City. So it must have been tough. Yeah, Edison. But it must have been tough for him in that sense to not have that undisputed starter status. And I believe that Sterling has been Man City's best winger for the best part of the last 5-6 years. And because he's the one who stayed, he's been scoring, he's consistently gotten goals. He got a few goals, but the majority of his 100+ goals have come at City. Yeah. He's always in the right position. He gets a lot of stick for his finishing, that he's not as efficient, because he misses some chances in some. But if you look at the balance of it and the numbers, his finishing is not that bad. It's pretty average.
I mean, 131 in 339 games. And
even that, when you look at his time at Man City specifically, because remember, he's also played a lot at Liverpool. He was playing wing back, he was playing here, he was playing there. He wasn't really that settled. And he's only 27, 28, you know. Yeah, exactly. He's been this is maybe his 10th or 11th Premier League season. So he's been playing top flight football for a long time. And that's part of why he's seen a certain way. But I think he's underrated in the sense that he gets all these goals, he gets all these assists. It's very unfair on him, but it is what it is. He's going for more game time. And I think Chelsea right now have one of the best wingers in the Premier League. And everyone just watched them Everyone watched Chelsea buy one of the best wingers in the Premier League. I felt that there were lots of teams who lacked a left winger who should have gone for him, but it is what it is.
Interesting. So 47.5 million, good deal. But let's look at it from a Chelsea perspective. Where does he slot in? How do you think he will be deployed? Looking at the fact that it looks like Ziyech is angling for a move away. So that chapter, it looks like it's going to. How do you think he will be deployed?
You usually see this three-headed snake of Havertz, Mount, and Werner quite often. I mean, now Lukaku's out of the picture. We know Havertz is probably going to be the one to lead the line going forward. So I see him taking Werner's place or sometimes Mount's place. But it looks like it will be Havertz, Sterling, and one other person by the looks of it, because he came here for the guarantee that he's going to be the man, that he's going to be the one that is getting on the end of a lot of chances. And the one thing I'm saying is that Sterling is a very good dribbler. We see it more with England than with Man City because of how Man City play, and that's why you see some of those carry stats and that other stats are so high in the league, because there's a dribbler there, but we don't see it as much because he's not given the chance to run with the ball. And I think with Chelsea, a team that's not as rigid and they won't play in as formation as Man City, we see a lot of the skills we don't really, quote unquote, see as much. And I feel and I hope people appreciate Sterling more, because he's one of the best wingers in the league, in my opinion. Okay,
all right, Raheem Sterling there. Let's have a look at some stats and let's see if we can compare him to Sadio Mane, because if we look at the Premier League and the wide men who are scoring, I mean, look at that. These are very interesting numbers. Not too far apart in terms of the goals per 90, but the assists per 90, you find that he's kind of pulling a little away from Mane. 0.16 on Mane, who's even left, and 0.23. Goals plus assists per 90, I believe it is. 0.67 for Mane, 0.71 for Sterling. And goals versus XG, so that's where I think Mane outduels Sterling, because Mane has a lot more in terms of the goals on him, plus 3.7, and this is plus 2.0. So clearly when you make a point for Raheem Sterling as being one of the best wingers in the Premier League, I think the numbers do fight for him in a very strong way. So that's quite interesting. So Chelsea have backed themselves an absolute winner in Raheem Sterling as well. We'll stay with the transfers. We'll get to a bit of preseason football in a second. We've spoken about Chelsea. Let's speak about Man United, because today they got one signing confirmed. Christian Eriksen. So nobody knew when the medical... he was signing, not signing. Today United have announced, boom, they have a player for the next 3 seasons. So your thoughts on this? It's a very interesting signing.
I mean, we saw what he did at Brentford, and I think it was very underrated because Brentford was struggling a bit until he came. They were sliding, and there was a very real chance they could be sucked into a relegation battle. But Eriksen starts playing, and from the moment he plays, they are probably one of the 6. They have one of the 6 best teams in the Premier League when you look at their record over that period. That's how good Brentford got after he joined. It might have just been luck, but you can't deny that Brentford before Eriksen, Brentford after Eriksen, there was a marked difference, and they were winning a lot of games. If I remember correctly, they won, was it 7 out of the 10 games he started? So, look, he's shown his quality. He's shown that he can still perform at a Premier League level. I thought he should have stayed at Brentford still, just because he was building something there. There was a story there. But I guess a lot of playing for Man U is very difficult to ignore. And so Man U have taken the chance on him. And I think Brentford can get a lot from him because, he's a great set-piece threat. He's a great striker of the ball. So he gives them some options. He's similar to Bruno in that way, but he's a bit different. He's a bit more measured in his style. And he fits in the Ajax way that Ten Hag knows. And we've been speaking about how Ten Hag seems to be going for people who are schooled in the Dutch style. And Eriksen is a fine example of that. There's someone who came through the Ajax Youth Academy, played many games for Ajax before he came to England. So Ten Hag probably has seen that in him, and he's someone that can implement his style. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. And I think he offers some very interesting options for them tactically in the terms of how they use him in a 4-3-3. He can also play on the wings. So very exciting times for Man U because this is a very good player.
Okay. Ivano, your thoughts on
it looks like if you've ever played for Ajax, make sure that your phone is fully charged because Ten Hag will be calling. But I think he's a good signing. He comes on the free. He knows how this coach wants to play, and he has, as Susu said, he showed in the Premier League that even after that unfortunate incident in the Euros, he still has that quality. And if you compare him to Bruno, I think Eriksen is a more settled player. He's less erratic with the passes. He's more measured, more patient. He will look. And if you saw some of he's part of the reason why Ivan Toney had so many goals getting to the end of the season because his delivery was on point. And if what we are seeing is true and Ronaldo is going to stay and you have Christian Eriksen in there, it looks like he's going to get a lot more goals.
If you were Ten Hag, the player has done his medical. You know his history. You've seen the incident at the Euros. How would you use him? How would you use him? Come off the bench more often, start him in the cup games? Would you let him finish games, that type of thing?
Well, I think the fitness people will be able to tell you how well he can play. But if preseason is anything to go by, it looks like Ten Hag likes to play with the 6 as a pivot and 2 CMs. So that means it's likely he can deploy him and Bruno at the same time. But then it means that whoever you're playing as the 6, you have to be very strong defensively, else you get exposed. So that's something he can explore. But then I think he would have to be patient with him. Because doing anything that has to do with the heart is a serious thing. And even with Brentford, he didn't play every game 90 minutes. They kind of slowly just put him into the game so that he gets a grasp of the pace. So with Ten Hag, he has the quality. You can put him in there to do damage in the attacking sense. But then I don't think he'll be playing every game. You'd have to see how he responds to the team and fitness and all those things. But it's a very, very good buy.
So how would you give Eriksen? Start him off the bench every time? Let him start games?
I see
let him
Eriksen
finish?
as a backup to Bruno.
Okay.
Going into the season. We'll see how things develop as the season goes. But when I look at it, I wouldn't want to play Bruno and Eriksen with their number 6, especially because Man U, as far as we know, don't have a number 6. Exactly. So, I mean, if Matic was in his prime, I could see it happening, but we don't have Matic in his prime. I mean, Fred, with all due respect, is not a number 6. He's too much of a busybody. McTominay doesn't have the quality. So there's a lot of issues about the 4-3-3 that maybe that's what Lisandro Martinez is coming to do, to play that 6. But I've said before that I'm a bit skeptical of that move because Lisandro Martinez played all his games last season as centre back. he can't play as a 6, but why would you buy a centre back to play him as a 6 when there's 6s available? So maybe that's why we want Frankie de Jong so badly. But even Frankie de Jong, I see him as more of a Fred type player, a bit of a busybody who you don't want to sit. So it makes deploying Eriksen and Bruno very difficult unless you play him on the wing. So in a central role, I see him as a backup to Bruno, but maybe he might start on one of the wings. Maybe that's the plan.
All right, since we're talking Man United, earlier this week they played their first preseason game. This was in Thailand. Today they played the other preseason game. They beat Melbourne, victory by 4-1. But let's talk about this. Was a very big one. Man United versus Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp said games between Man United and Liverpool never ever take a friendly dimension. So in the minds of fans, this was an important game. And Man United beat Liverpool by 4-0. I saw all kinds of funny tweets. People said the Man United team beat the Liverpool reserves 3-0. And the Man United reserves beat the Liverpool first team 1. All kinds of funny things. Oh, Lord Jesus. Emmanuel, your thoughts on this? The result was kind of strange.
Very.
It was very strange. If you strip away all the funny commentary and everything, this was a very strange result.
Yeah, but if you're looking at it from a Manchester United lens, it was a good game in the sense that you saw the things you'd want to see from your team. You saw a team well drilled. You saw a system being put in place. You saw some form of a synergy between lateral defenders and wingers.
You could see coaching at work.
Exactly. And you could see that there was a change in attitude. They were more enthusiastic to press Liverpool. And you could see that this is a team that has been well drilled by a manager who knows specifically and exactly what he wants to do. And it was, from the United point of view, it gives you some form of hope that going into the season, if players are fit and you have the right players at the right places, this could be a better season as compared to last season.
Okay. Then from a Liverpool perspective.
I mean, it's a preseason game, you'd say, so you wouldn't want to give it too much importance. But any game you play, if you go into a game, you have about 19, 20 shots with no goal, and you get beaten 4-0, you have to start asking yourself certain questions.
I'll get back to you on that. So another he's mentioned it, okay, maybe we should go there. Darwin Núñez, and all of a sudden, look, my personal, I think he will score the goal. It's just one of those things. But do you get the sense, Emmanuel, and so I'll take your thoughts on this, that there is pressure on the player to deliver, because with Sadio Mane leaving, it means that now Liverpool need to find another source of goals to support whatever Mohamed Salah will give. Do you get the sense that now there's increased pressure on Darwin Núñez to deliver for all that money he's been bought, his ability and all of that? He has to deliver, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has. I think that there's a lot of weight on his shoulders, and it may be the reason why he has already started missing certain sitters and all those things.
Exactly.
But then, if you come into a team like Liverpool and you are given the starting role to be the spearhead of the attack, it automatically gives you pressure, especially with the price tag he came in. But then I think this is where I would expect players like Salah and the players who are more settled just to let him know that relax, it will come natural. If you are good, you are good. You just need 1 or 2 chances, and once the goals start coming, it will start flowing. But then when the goals don't come, that's when people will start saying you are the Uruguayan Andy Carroll and things like that. But then for a player like him, when you find yourself among people who've been champions before, you draw closer to the people who are more relaxed. You draw closer to the people who are settled in the team, and then you can draw inspiration from them. Salah also went through a dry spell, very cool, so it's someone you can easily learn from that. If you are good, you are good. You play in a team where you get chances because Liverpool creates. So then, luck will come. Hopefully, I hope he's on the right side of the goals and not the left side like Lukaku.
So your thoughts on the game itself, and even if does it have any meaning for this? What does it even mean for these two teams?
From what I saw, Liverpool and Man U had 2 different objectives. Man U came, they started with their strongest team. They kept them on for a longer period. They were trying to build a certain cohesion. In the case of Liverpool, you could see that they saw this game as a friendly, even though despite Klopp's words, because to start with,
with the big team,
with a lot of young players you haven't heard of, and we always say squad numbers don't mean anything in football, but at the same time they do. The players are wearing 64, 83, 92. Yeah, you know that they are nowhere near the first team, and we saw a lot of those players starting. Then after 30 minutes, he made 9 changes. Then after 30 minutes, he made another 9 changes or 10 changes or whatever. So it shows that he he wasn't. He was trying to let everyone run, get their legs moving, and that kind of stuff. But even then, it's just what it stood out to me was how bad that Liverpool high line looks when Van Dijk is not around. That's what really stood out to me, especially in the first half, because we saw the kind of younger players trying to play this high line, you know, the less experienced players. And that's why Man U just, every time they got the ball, it's like they were coming to score. And it's also good for Man U because even though you have different objectives, it's good for Man U. You are getting those combinations. You are working together as a team. You are getting confidence in front of goal. Martial scored that day. He scored today as well. Rashford scored against Melbourne and that kind of stuff. So they need to build that confidence. They need to build those partnerships in this new system. They are no longer playing Ole ball. So those combinations and that understanding they had under Ole is gone. And now they are trying to develop a new understanding. So they had different objectives. I'm sure Klopp wasn't happy with the result, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't change much for Liverpool season. Speaking on Darwin Núñez, you know, it's been a hot topic. You know, after certain utterances on Panorama, people thought I was being a bit harsh. Now, certain people have come and said that, oh, you are right. I said, look, I made a point. His technical ability is a bit lower than most other strikers. But if he's given space, he has the power and athleticism to make things happen. So he will struggle in those tight spaces. It was never going to be in doubt for me, which is why I made the Lukaku comparison. But when we saw Lukaku at Inter, there was a lot of space. He could run with the ball. He was getting ahead of steam. If Darwin Núñez is able to get more ahead of steam, you know, attack, cross, and that, we will see things happen.
So effectively, you're saying that one of two things will need to happen on a regular basis for him to succeed. Teams leaving space behind them for him to run into, or Liverpool managing to conjure that space for him to work in.
It's not, and I mean in the way that if you are going to have him make tight touches in close space, like what Benzema does, dropping deep, he won't do well. Even Jota doesn't do well that way. But we saw Jota score a lot of goals last season because he maximized his movement. He was running at different times. When you see Jota dropping deep, it's not a pretty sight. But when Jota is in the box, he comes alive. And Jota scored a lot of goals. And Núñez is similar in that sense. Because of his body structure, you see him as a target man. So you want him to, you know, chase the ball late. But he's not that good at that. He will probably get better. He's only, 21, 22, wherever the case is. So, but it's just, I believe he will score goals. But we shouldn't expect a kind of deft Firmino touches type player. That's not who he is. He's going to need to attack the ball, you know, one-time strike, penalty box striker. He will score goals, I believe, but these misplaced passes, touches, missing the ball, it happens. But it's nothing to be worried about yet.
Okay, all right. You're still watching the Citi Sports Roundup. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up. We'll do some athletics. Team Ghana is in the US preparing for the World Athletics Championship. They begin today in the US. It will be probably when it's Saturday morning here, it will be late night in the US. Oh, you get what I mean, time dynamics. We'll discuss all of that before we leave, but we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. This is still the Citi Sports Roundup on CCTV. Welcome back. This is the Citi Sports Roundup. We are wrapping it up quickly. Let's do some athletics. And Ghana is in the United States for the 2022 World Athletics Championship happening in Eugene, Oregon. And it's a very, very interesting competition. Aside the Olympic Games, this is the other most important thing in world athletics, where people get to see who's the best in whatever it is they are doing, whether running, throwing, or jumping. Now, Team Ghana will be taking part in a number of events. The women's long jump. The men are doing all the sprints and middle distance. If you've got 100 meter, 200 meter, 4x100, 800 meter as well. And that is that. Ghana is part of the relays, the 4x100 relay team. Let's see how they are getting ready for that particular event. The relays will come a little later in the championship. So I'm sure we'll see in a second. There you have it. Team Ghana prepping. So this is when they made it to the Olympic Games. So clearly they've got some potential there. And with Benjamin Azamati taking part in the Diamond League and winning events here, it looks like comparatively, some of them are getting better preparatory grounds for this event.
Well, I think it's a welcome sight because it started from the Olympics based on how Benjamin Azamati and the other teams performed, and it went into the Diamond League. I think it's still building up. Maybe you would want to see them at the peak of their prize, getting to the next Olympics. But then we'd want to see, let's say, a podium finish here or there, so that gives you some form of assurance. With the times too, you'd want to see some progressions in there. And we'll be really looking out for the relay to see how it performs.
Okay, Susu, your thoughts?
The person I'm more interested in is Deborah Aqua. She's a long jump record holder.
She's the only female on the team.
Yeah, and I remember a very kind of disturbing story about how she said that if she doesn't get certain support, she'll quit. So I'm hoping she has a very good world championship that will lead to some sponsorship, because we've not heard anything from the Ghana Athletics Association, as far as I understand, about sponsoring her to keep her career. Because she said she has to eat. She can't just train. She needs some money to train, pay for everything. So I'm hoping she has a good world championship, get some sponsorship from that. Maybe some Nike or Adidas will step in, give her a shoe, something, and she can continue her career. Because this seems like someone's very promising, but our lack of infrastructure and other things are not helping her. So,
all right, let's. The other bit that's coming from the World Athletics Championship is an issue of visas. Now, remember, some athletes cannot make it due to a few visa issues here and there. And so let's get some more insight. We'll hear from Renee Washington. She's a member of the LOC of the World Athletics Championship, breaking a few issues down concerning visas and all related matters. All right, so that was Renee Washington. She's a member of the LOC. So this issue of visas is quite interesting. Some athletes have not gotten their visas. It looks like some may not go at all, and probably some may get them late and show up quite. Wow. I mean, I figured that for an event like this, there would be a bit of a dispensation for athletes. I don't know what's going on.
I don't think they can afford to. Because if you remember, there's always a story at some Olympics or something about some athletes running out. So they have to do this. And that's the problem, because of some of the behaviors of certain people. We don't need to get into why they do these things, but once people are doing these things, you can understand. They want certain people in their country. They have mouths to feed. So it's very difficult, but it just makes it for a less interesting event, and it's very unfortunate because you want the best of the best to be there. And it's so sad when someone misses out because of something as bureaucratic as a visa issue or something like that. It's very unfortunate, but it is what it is, and it's part of the world we live in.
I think I tend to side with Susu on that, because you train for years, you train for months, looking up to the tournament, and because of one flimsy reason or another, you are not given the chance to compete on the highest level. You are not given the chance to prove yourself. And that can be a bit disturbing. Yeah, people missing and all those kind of things. But then on the part of athletes who are really looking to perform and who have worked hard to get in there, it's a bit sad. And as you were saying, it's being resolved. And I wish that it will be resolved so that the proper athletes get there in time, they warm up into the tournament, and then they're able to go onto the stage and perform finally.
Interesting. There's a story of Ferdinand Omanyala.
Yes, I remember.
I think he just got his visa in the last 24 hours. He'll get there quite late, clear customs. Essentially, he would virtually have no time
to prepare. I was even going to say, even look at our own visa scandal here with the Australia. So I can understand why they are being so strict, because we are given a dispensation to bring a certain number of people. Then you bloat the list, and people, and you hear my landlord and my this and my that.
I mean, you end up here,
good enough.
You end up people are seeing Jama on dev teams and stuff. We need to stop those things.
The Australia episode. I know some of the people who are on that, but I don't want to say a lot. Ridiculous things that have happened. But anyway, guys, expectations for Team Ghana. We know we are coming up against the very best. What would you like to see?
I think I would want to see Azamanti on the podium. I would want to see. I would want to see his hard work over the past 3 to 4 years crowned with a medal, even if it's a bronze. And then I would want the relay team to do some good time, get to the finals at least, and then put in some good time. Then we know that, okay, this is a team we can start prepping. If the authorities will do the right things, we can start prepping them for the Olympics and more tournaments.
So your expectation?
I'm not. Medals are very hard to come by. It's a talented field, but I just want to see them in the finals. Just show that you're at least in the top 8. You're getting better. Because I can't remember the last time I saw a Ghanaian in the finals of any of these events. So let's get some Ghanaians in the finals. I don't want to say let's crawl before we walk, but it's something to that effect. That let's get to the final. Let's make progress. I just want to see that we are actually competing now. We're not just there to make up the numbers. So getting to the finals is what I would like to see. At least just one. Okay. I'm not saying everyone, just one.
All right, Emmanuel, thank you.